Okay. Now
'Cause
it's
usually there's a
recording.
red button. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah.
Now it's recording.
All right. So I'm going to start letting people in.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're going to give it a couple more minutes, see who else is going to be attending, and then we're going to get started.
Hello, how's everybody doing?
Hi.
It's Melissa. Nice to meet everybody, but I haven't met you.
Oh, hi, Melissa.
Part of, I don't know, but I'll just say I'm part of the new HR. I'm a new member of the HR team. I'm one of the assistants, HR assistant.
Oh, nice to meet you, Melissa.
Likewise, thank you. I'm sorry about the noise.
Oh, no, it's no problem. We're going to actually ask everybody to go mute once we start, so that way there's no background noise. So
awesome.
We will get started and give it another 2 or so minutes.
Great. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
My students love the chat part of
They're probably like, hi.
It's a great way to get them to practice their writing.
That's so funny.
But they do. They love it.
Oh, I'm sure. My sister does tutoring virtually now, so she's doing, like, she has a 4-year-old, and they're like messaging, hi, can you see me now?
Oh,
she's like instant messaging.
I know, they're getting younger and younger, knowing how to do the technology.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It sounds a little scary. All right. Still getting a couple more people entering, so we'll give it 1 more minute and then let's get it started. Good. All right. So if anybody else is going to end up joining, I'll be sure to let them in and we'll just get started. So I want to say hi to everybody who is joining our Remote Learning 101. Our presenter today is Lindsay Highland, a teacher at IS 34. I want to thank you, Lindsay, for taking the time out to do this with us. We are really trying to teach everybody the new norm and how we're all in this together, and despite that everything is changing and things are different, we're gonna share as many resources as we possibly can. I'm gonna ask, if you haven't already done so, please mute your mic. You can keep your video on if you'd like, we are recording this remote learning presentation, so please be mindful of that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the chat box and we will be sure to answer them. This is our first of many to come, so this is really just this is the little tip of the iceberg, and then from there we'll dive a little bit deeper. So with that said, I'm going to pass this off to Lindsay.
Well, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. As Alyssa said, this is a little remote learning 101. We're kind of in the baby pool of swim lessons, and we will slowly get into deeper waters later on. But, you know, I come to you with just a few tips and tricks, some things I learned. I had never would have known 4 months ago that I could teach students with intellectual disabilities through the computer. And although it's not ideal at all, I have found some resources that were helpful. Thank goodness for technology, for Zooms and Google Meets. And so we are going to go through just some things that might be helpful. I come to you from IS34, and I teach in the ACES program there, and that's for students with intellectual disabilities. And we provide academic and career and essential skills to students that are labeled intellectually disabled, but they could have their learning in their community school, in a community school. So when this all came about, I struggled at first to think, oh my goodness, how am I going to teach students that really want me next to them? And, you know, we're such a physical bunch. But with Google Classroom and some resources, and luckily a lot of agencies and online sites gave us things for free, and some through September, till September at least. So we're going to jump into a few strategies on what you can use through the computer to help with assisting families. My paras have been excellent. They've given me so many different ideas that I'm also going to be sharing with you. So you might all be in different roles. Some of you might be paras in schools. Maybe you are working in an agency that helps individuals in group homes. So we're going to try to touch a lot of different areas, but just let us know, you know, in the chat box or at the end, or email us if there's something you really want more information on, because I'd be happy to set up a more specific Zoom. So today we are going to look at different roles. We're going to look at what an IEP is and what the remote learning plans are. Some Google Classroom tips and tricks, teaching strategies, behavior management, so motivation. It's a lot harder to get attention through a computer sometimes. And so there's going to be some resources for that. And then just some general resources. There's so many out there. Some are free, some are some sort of payment. Depending on where you're coming from, you might have that paid for. So we'll get into that. And again, if you have questions, we're going to do some comments at the end. But hopefully you will leave with at least 1 or 2 awesome things.
I do want to cut in for 1 second and say that everyone who is participating today will receive these slides. So any of the resources that are embedded into this PowerPoint, you will have access to. So please keep that in mind, and they are free, so they can be utilized, and we will be sending this out after the presentation, and you can share it widely. But we do like to encourage people to actually sit in and listen. So with that said, again, Lindsay.
Yeah. I know live learning is always the best, but we will settle for remote.
Some
So different roles that have, yeah. So, you know, there are different roles that are involved in a student's learning, and then they're also a part of the remote learning. So you have teachers that know students, you have paras that are involved with a student, therapists like speech teachers, OT, you know, phys ed, adaptive phys ed. You have direct support professionals, so those that might not be in schools. My sister, she's living in a community residence. She goes to Eden too, so she has a lot of direct support professionals working with her out of the school building, tutors, parents, and other support people. So there's lots of different roles involved and to be utilized. So, you know, teachers are constantly looking to paras and therapists and working as a team. So reaching out to all of these people. So if you are a direct support professional, thinking about reaching out to any teachers that are involved in your students, if they have a one-to-one para as well, any tutors, parents, siblings that are in the family who, if you need to try to get to know your student or your, you know, person you're working with, whatever relationship you have with them, reach out to these people because they're all involved in their remote life and educational life as well. We can go on here. So an IEP, so all my students, they have an IEP, which is an individual education plan. Based on, you know, the goals that we want them to reach, we create this plan. So if they're receiving special ed services, they're going to have an IEP. And when I have on these slides, click here. When you receive these slides in your email, you'll be able to click there and more information will pop up about what an IEP is, and you'll have that as a resource. But within that IEP, you have goals, you have a whole slew of information that gives you the story behind your student, the person you're working with. It gives certain modifications, like what does this child need in order to access the curriculum within what they're learning. So when I have students in my classroom, I'm reading their IEPs, what needs do they have, what can I do? And in the IEP, it'll tell you specifically, or it should, you know, that this student uses graphic organizers, or they benefit from checklists, or if they have vision problems, what has been useful to them. And that will really help you when you are assisting them because you'll know what they specifically need in order to learn. Now, that's an everyday within school. The IEP is written based around what needs they have in school or what you can do within the school building. So when we all went remote, each student with an IEP then received a remote learning plan. And that remote learning plan sort of, we looked at the IEP and we said, what do we need to do at home for them to meet their goals within this IEP? And oftentimes it'll be similar things, but we now have to say, what can we put in this plan to help them at home? So if you're helping that student and they're at home through the computer, you would want to look at the remote learning plan. What does this child need at home in order to access the curriculum? Whereas before it was in school. So you'll see in the remote learning plans, they need some sort of technology. What technology do they have? If you're working with someone in the Department of Education, if they've been within there, they were offered free technology. So when you're working with families, you may want to ask them, can I look at their IEP? Or can you share with me their goals and their remote learning plan? And families would be happy to share with you what their child needs in order to meet their goals. So if you are, say if you're working with a child and we've gone back to school in September, parents are a great first contact, but usually there's an IEP case manager, which is usually one of the child's teachers. There's also usually an IEP case manager within a school building, and you can reach out to them, but the parents or who that child's living with is usually going to have a copy and has to have a copy of their IEP. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about planning things for whomever you're working with. We can go next slide if you want, Alyssa. Thank you. Alyssa's my side person here. So Google Classroom. So when this all happened, it was a crash course in Google Classroom. And I have to say, going forward, even if when we get back to sort of maybe typical school, I am definitely going to be still using Google Classroom. It has certainly helped with presenting curriculum to kids. And there's lots of cool things within Google Classroom. I could make a whole 2-hour presentation about Google Classroom. And if that's something you're interested in learning, please let us know because I will. There's a tutorial, so if you click on the tutorial here, if you click on there, it is a really nice video that takes you through the steps. And what I like about it is a visual. The person is literally showing you on Google Classroom where to click, where to type. And that really helped me in the beginning of all this because I'm such a visual person, which I'm sure a lot of the people you're working with are. So what's nice about Google Classroom, it is a nice visual, organized remote classroom. It's kind of similar to Facebook where you can post on a stream, you can create little mini folders. As I know now, Google Classroom, you need a class code and the student would need to join your class. So it is private, which is also nice. Parents and families really like that. No one can just enter a Google Classroom. They need the code. As of this presentation, I think you needed to have a school assign an email to a student and then they can access it. So they can grant you access. All of my paras, I put them on my Google Classroom. I also put them on as teachers. So a teacher role will see if a student's completed work, can help see if how they've completed it. So at first I put my paras on as students and I realized they couldn't tell a parent if they finished their work. So a lot of the parents were contacting them. So if you are a teacher who has paras, I would advise putting them on as teachers. And then they go in and they can see the work and see if the child has finished it. And they have more access than a student would. You can access Google Classroom on a computer, on a phone, on an iPad. I have found that looking at the Google Classroom and manipulating through Google Classroom is much better on a laptop. The Department of Ed sent out loads of iPads, but it wasn't as easy to manipulate on an iPad. But I have it on my phone, and you can message with families and students, so it can be accessed anywhere where you find internet. Within Google Classroom is something called Google Meet. You can actually access the Google Meet on your phone, but it's basically like Zoom. So it's Zoom, but on Google Classroom, and I meet my students every day on Google Meet. We all meet, it's like this, it's Zoom. I share my screen and I can teach them like I'm in the classroom on Google Meet. So if you're supporting a lot of my paras, what they did is after we met, they would go on Google Meet with their student and help them through the work. So it was a really nice tool to be able to use a little bit better than a phone call because you can share a screen. So my paras would share their screen and help their student navigate through the work that they needed to complete. So Google Classroom is definitely an entire presentation, but it is a great resource. So definitely look at that tutorial, but I'd be happy to take you through more specifically. But that's been one of the best platforms for remote learning. So next, I should go like this, like swipe. Okay, so communication tips and tricks. I think a lot of times, you know, maybe you're meeting a student for the first time in remote learning, which definitely is really difficult because it's so much easier to get to know a student being next to them and doing things with them. But sometimes, and remote learning was a little bit easier because I knew my students for this whole year, so I already had a connection with them. But it's important that if you're just starting out to communicate. If they are within a school building, reach out to the teachers, reach out to the families. I'm a pretty flexible teacher, so you know, I would want, if I know somebody is working with one of my students, you know, I'd be so happy to share any information possible about what would help them outside of when I'm teaching them. So definitely reach out. If you are a para within the classroom, definitely ask to be added to the Google class. It was something that was just I assumed that every para would be added. Sometimes it might not be as obvious to add them, but they are such a great resource. So if you are a para on this Zoom, ask to be added so you see everything going on in the classroom. If you're a teacher, keep that in mind. Add the paras. My paras have gone above and beyond, and they've really helped with getting through this remote learning. Also setting up a regular communication chain of some sort. So for example, one of my paras every morning texted the parent of one of my students and said, this is what is going on today. Remember to click attendance. Remember to check the classwork. And they came up with this regular communication, and the parent always knew the para would text in the morning, and it just became sort of a nice routine. You could also do weekly group emails. So if you're a teacher, I've sent out weekly emails to parents, just keeping them up to date. My paras and I are all on a group text. We're always talking about what we can do and how to support each other. So that you'll find out naturally with the group of people you're working with. So, but just think about, oh, what can I set up so that I'm having regular communication so that, you know, things don't just get away from you. And that was really helpful. You also, direct support staff, I actually meant to wear my direct support staff t-shirt, but you guys are an amazing resource. I don't know what I would do without all of my paras. So they notice the littlest things. They're almost always in communication with my students, and they will get in touch with me and say, you know, I noticed this. They might notice something that's going on at home that I might need to know about. And so, I mean, you are a huge important part of this person's educational journey. So communication is really great. A lot of my paras, they kept a journal. So they wrote down the dates that they worked with their
Sorry, Lindsay, I think you might be muted. Or something happened with your speaker. Uh-oh. Don't hear anything. Oh, okay. Everyone can hear you. It might be me. Okay, perfect. Great. You have to just now do some hand signals for me because I can't hear. I'm having a technical difficulty, so. Oh, there we go. So yes, okay. So we did want to incorporate ComHab into here a little bit because, oh, thank you, Jamelia. Yes, you can hear me. Perfect. So we wanted to incorporate ComHab in here because we wanted to let it be known that this is a program. This is a service that is still available despite everything that's happening. And for those of you who don't know what ComHab is, community habilitation is a program that provides habilitative services in the community, non-certified settings to facilitate community inclusion, integration, relationship building, and independent skills. So ComHab supports can include adaptive skill development, development of social skills, leisure skills, appropriate behavior development to help the individual access their community. All ComHab services are provided by a prescribed staff action plan, which outlines the specific services to be provided. So some examples of ComHab supports include travel training, independent shopping, community safety and awareness, money management, peer building, socializations, and much more. ComHab can be one-on-one with a DSP or in a small group setting, can also take place in the home or in the community. We also do offer ComHab in lieu of DayHab. So DayHab participants who need a little bit more of a one-on-one setting, that's also available. So we did want to mention that in there because specifically ComHab DSPs would take advantage of the remote learning options that are here. We also wanted to kind of leave off on some more notes I have here. Sorry, everyone, with my technical difficulties on all ends. That was it. Okay. So we did want to kind of talk on behalf of the DSPs to say, we want you to be honest about your strengths and abilities to support remote learning. This is so new for everyone, which was why this was really just like the tip of the iceberg for us. So we wanted to make sure that you guys know it's okay to not know. People are learning, and I think Lindsay can definitely attest to that, that everyone's still kind of learning, we want you to also be resourceful in finding online resources to help with virtual teaching, similar to the resources that are provided in this PowerPoint. Go use Google. Let Google be your friend. You will find a lot. It's not worth it to reinvent the wheel. If there's a resource out there, use it and use it well. Reach out to your supervisors for support. Have the person or the family open a line of communication with the education team, like teachers and paras, so you can reach out for support. Read and learn the IEP. So I know Lindsay had been talking about the IEP, but learn it. Really try to get comfortable with it and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's important to know who you're working with and build in breaks and some movement to keep focus. So that's what's really important, specifically for behavior management. Positive reinforcement is so important. There's that resource available. There's so many more. And then for the families and the people that are being supported, we want you to remember that it's important for the families to set expectations and boundaries of what the DSP is expected to do. We all aren't born knowing, so it's really important to be transparent from the get-go. It's important for the families and people supported to know the strengths of the DSPs. DSPs are not teachers by trade, and they will also have a learning curve in trying to support someone with remote learning. So like we said before, to the DSPs, it's okay to not know. And families, please be patient. We're all learning. Make sure to review the IEP and the remote learning plans with the DSPs on your own. Talk with your teachers. If you have a teacher that's as great as Lindsay is here, I'm sure they're answering as many questions as they possibly can. And set the DSP and yourself or your child with a schedule of what's expected and what can be done in a simple chart that identifies time for schoolwork and then recreation. Because I think for anybody, no matter what, it's so important to have that work-life balance. So even creating that chart might actually be a great way to clearly draw out, hey, this is my me time. This is my time that, I need to learn, and I need to sit down with my DSP and really, get going here. So those are the things that I wanted to leave off on. And I'm sorry again, Lindsay, that I don't know if you're saying anything. So I'm going to bring it back to you. All right, guys. So I guess if there aren't any questions, then our next step is we will be sending out the PowerPoint to anybody that participated. Please feel free to share those resources, but also keep in mind that we are going to be trying to plan next steps. We are really looking for more specific needs that you guys are finding that you're coming across, things that you need, hey, you know what? I don't really use Google Classrooms as much. I really think I need a hard hitting training on how to utilize Zoom, or I need more information on positive reinforcement, or I need more information and I just really need your help. I want to thank Lindsay again. You can reach out to Lindsay, and I'm going to also put my email address in here as well. You guys will get my email anyway, because I'll be sending out the PowerPoint. Send them over to me so that way we can get some trainings going. So we really do appreciate that feedback. And I see James asked the question. All right, so we're all good now? All right, perfect. Thank you again, Lindsay. Thank you again, Lindsay, for helping us with this presentation, and we're really looking forward to the next steps. Again, reach out to myself and Lindsay, and we will get some more of these trainings going, specifically on the things that you're coming across, because this is not going to go away anytime soon. So we got to really start getting comfortable with our remote learning. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right. Bye.